The air in the ultrasound waiting room was thick with a tension Charity Dingle could almost taste, a metallic tang of fear and a bitter hint of impending doom. Her heart hammered against her ribs like a trapped bird, each beat a frantic countdown to the inevitable. She clutched her handbag tighter, her knuckles white, her gaze darting nervously towards the door, half expecting the world to come crashing down at any moment. Charity, a woman whose life had been a masterclass in deception, now found herself ensnared in her most perilous lie yet. The white lie she had spun, a desperate attempt to manipulate and secure her future, was about to unravel in the most public and humiliating way possible. Her carefully constructed facade, built brick by painful brick, was on the verge of collapsing, and the architect of its destruction was none other than Jacob Gallagher. Jacob, a young man often underestimated, possessed a keen intuition sharpened by years of navigating the complex emotional landscape of the Dingle family. He had watched Charity, his gaze unblinking, picking up on the subtle tells, the nervous tics, the fleeting shadows in her eyes that betrayed the truth she so desperately tried to bury. He wasn't fueled by malice, but by a quiet conviction that lies, especially those that hurt the innocent, could not be allowed to fester. As Charity was called into the scanning room, a cold dread snaking its way up her spine, Jacob made his move. He knew the precise moment, the perfect opening to unleash his bombshell. The image on the screen, meant to confirm new life, would instead become the chilling visual proof of her deceit. The doctor's calm, professional voice would suddenly morph into a pronouncement of Charity's deepest fear. The ensuing confrontation, witnessed by unsuspecting medical staff and other waiting families, promised to be a public spectacle of raw emotion and devastating revelations, leaving Charity's reputation in tatters and her future hanging by the thinnest of threads. The aftermath would reverberate not just through her immediate family, but through the entire village, casting a long, dark shadow over everyone she held dear, making her wonder if true redemption was even possible. Meanwhile, a different kind of storm was brewing around Rob Sugden, a storm of conflicting desires and impossible choices. Rob found himself adrift in a treacherous sea, caught between the devilishly charming yet undeniably dangerous Kev Townsend and the steadfast, deeply loving Aaron Dingle. Kev, recently released from the shadows of his past, had returned to Emmerdale with a renewed vigor and a shocking proposition, a grand gesture to renew their vows, a symbolic rebirth of their turbulent relationship. His words, dripping with a practiced sincerity, were designed to disarm, to reignite old flames and erase the painful memories of his past transgressions. He painted a picture of a fresh start, a life free from the mistakes that had once defined them, promising a future bathed in the warm glow of rediscovered passion. But Aaron, with his quiet strength and unwavering devotion, represented something deeper, more stable, a love forged in the fires of adversity and unconditional acceptance. The news of Kev's proposal hit Aaron like a physical blow, a visceral punch to the gut that threatened to rip open old wounds. He watched, heartbroken, as Rob wrestled with his decision, seeing the flicker of temptation in his eyes, the dangerous pull of the past. The tension between the three reached a fever pitch, threatening to explode at any moment. Rob's internal struggle was a brutal battle between the intoxicating allure of a dramatic, rekindled romance and the comforting, genuine embrace of a love he already possessed. The upcoming scenes promised a series of emotionally charged confrontations, whispered pleas, and agonizing silences as Rob agonized over which path to choose. Would he succumb to Kev's seductive promises of a dramatic new beginning, or would he choose the steady, true love that Aaron offered? The future of their hearts, and the stability of Emmerdale's most tempestuous love triangle, hung precariously in the balance, promising a dramatic climax that would leave viewers breathless. In another corner of the village, a different kind of dread was slowly tightening its grip on Paddy Kirk. The usually jovial village vet found his infectious optimism replaced by a gnawing anxiety, a persistent unease about the sudden, inexplicable disappearance of his father, Bear Wolf. Bear, a man as boisterous and predictable as the village clock, had vanished without a trace, leaving behind only an echoing silence. The silence was deafening, amplified by the fact that Bear had failed to contact Paddy's beloved daughter, Eve, on her birthday. This omission, so unlike Bear, sent a shiver of fear down Paddy's spine. It wasn't just a missed call, it was a violation of a sacred family ritual, a red flag flapping violently in the wind. Paddy tried to rationalize it, to dismiss it as Bear's eccentricities, but the pit in his stomach grew deeper with each passing hour. He started making frantic calls, his voice growing more desperate with every unanswered ring. He visited Bear's cottage, only to find it eerily quiet, a stillness that felt profoundly wrong. There was no note, no message, just the ghost of Bear's presence lingering in the untouched belongings. Had Bear simply decided to embark on another one of his spontaneous adventures, oblivious to the panic he was causing? Or had something far more sinister befallen the rugged wrestler? The questions haunted Paddy, stealing his sleep and poisoning his waking hours. The possibility of an accident, a sudden illness, or even foul play began to gnaw at him, turning his cheerful disposition into a mask of thinly veiled panic. The weight of his growing fear became unbearable, and with a heavy heart, Paddy made the agonizing decision to report his father missing to the police. The investigation would undoubtedly peel back layers of Bear's life, potentially unearthing secrets even Paddy wasn't aware of. This storyline promised a suspenseful journey into the unknown, leaving viewers on the edge of their seats, wondering if Bear would return unharmed, or if Paddy was on the verge of an unimaginable tragedy. Marlon Dingle, usually the emotional anchor of his family, was disturbingly oblivious to the silent scream emanating from his daughter, April Windsor. His world, consumed by the comforting routines of the Woolpack kitchen and the gentle rhythms of family life, remained tragically untouched by the maelstrom raging within April's young heart. She was a ghost walking among the living, her bright eyes now shadowed by a terror that was both profound and deeply isolating. April, barely a teenager, had found herself trapped in a living nightmare, her innocence savagely snatched away by the crushing weight of a drug debt she couldn't possibly repay. The shame and fear were suffocating, a constant companion that whispered dark suggestions in her ear. She had considered the unthinkable, almost selling herself for money, a harrowing experience that left indelible scars on her soul. Now, caught between the terrifying prospect of confessing her secret to Marlon and the desperate urge to flee the village, April was at a terrifying crossroads. Each option felt like a jump off a cliff, but she knew inaction would be a slow, agonizing death. The ruthless drug lord, Ray Walters, a shadowy figure whose influence stretched far beyond the village limits, had made it chillingly clear there was no escape, no leniency. He was a predator, patient and merciless, his grip tightening with each passing day. April imagined his cold, calculating eyes watching her every move, his silent threats echoing in her mind. Her internal monologue was a chaotic symphony of fear, regret, and a desperate yearning for freedom. Would she dare confide in her father, risking his anger, his disappointment, and the shattering of his idealized image of her? Or would she make the desperate dash for freedom, a terrifying flight into the unknown, leaving behind everything she knew and loved? The emotional intensity of April's storyline was poised to rip at the heartstrings of viewers, showcasing a raw, heartbreaking depiction of a child trapped in an adult's brutal world, leading to an episode that promised to be one of the most poignant and devastating in Emmerdale's history. The lingering question was not just if she would escape Ray, but how scarred she would be if she did. In a surprising twist of fate, a new, utterly unexpected romance began to blossom in the most unlikely of places, threatening to ignite a passionate fire between two individuals whose past was marred by conflict. Carrie Wyatt, ever the resilient and fiery spirit, found herself inexplicably drawn to Jai Sharma, the ruthless businessman who had, only weeks prior, summarily fired her. The irony was not lost on the village gossips, but for Carrie, something deeper, more primal, was stirring. In unseen moments whispered about but never shown, Carrie had found herself swooning over Jai, a dangerous attraction that defied logic and reason. Was it his power, his intensity, or a vulnerability she sensed beneath his often cold exterior? Whatever it was, the pull was undeniable. Their clandestine meetings, stolen glances, and increasingly bold gestures culminated in a series of near misses, almost exposing their burgeoning affair. The thrill of secrecy, the danger of being caught, only intensified their illicit connection. One particular moment, heart-stopping in its tension, saw them almost caught in a passionate kiss, their lips just inches apart, their eyes locked in a silent promise of forbidden desires. The air crackled with unspoken words, with the intoxicating scent of risk. This burgeoning romance, blossoming amidst the backdrop of village scandal and personal turmoil, was poised to send shockwaves through Emmerdale. Carrie and Jai were two complex individuals, each with their own baggage and past mistakes, making their connection both thrilling and potentially catastrophic. Would their love affair be a fleeting spark, extinguished by the harsh light of reality, or would it ignite into a roaring inferno that consumed everything in its path? The answer remained tantalizingly out of reach, but the journey promised to be an emotional roller coaster, filled with clandestine encounters, desperate whispers, and the ever-present threat of exposure, leaving viewers to wonder if this surprising pairing was a recipe for happiness or a guaranteed disaster. Kevin Townsend, a man who had always played life by his own rules, decided to gamble everything on a single, audacious move. Intent on cementing his tumultuous relationship with Robert Sugden, and perhaps driven by a desire to finally outmaneuver Aaron Dingle, Kevin orchestrated a surprise proposal of remarriage. It wasn't just a question, it was a grand, theatrical gesture designed to sweep Robert off his feet and send a clear, unequivocal message to anyone who dared stand in their way. He pulled out all the stops, creating an atmosphere charged with emotion, painting a vivid picture of a future where their love could finally flourish, unburdened by past mistakes. His words were persuasive, his eyes held a dangerous glint of conviction, and his timing was impeccable. The moment Robert, caught in the intoxicating whirlwind of Kevin's charm and the sheer audacity of the proposal, uttered the word yes. A ripple effect of devastation tore through the village. Aaron Dingle, his heart already bruised and battered by years of longing and unrequited love for Robert, heard the news like a death knell. The raw pain that erupted within him was a physical agony, a silent scream of betrayal and despair. He had held on to a fragile hope, a quiet belief that Robert would eventually see the truth of their connection, the depth of their shared history. But Kevin's proposal, and Robert's acceptance, shattered that hope into a million irreparable pieces. Aaron's reaction wasn't just disappointment, it was a profound sense of loss, a fear that his chance with Robert was now irrevocably gone. He watched Kevin and Robert, a bitter taste in his mouth, the joyous facade of the couple twisting into a grotesque mockery of his own unfulfilled desires. The tension between the three reached an unbearable climax, promising an explosion of emotions that would leave no one untouched. The question on everyone's lips, whispered in hushed tones across the village, was agonizingly simple yet monumentally complex. Will Robert have a change of heart? Will the intoxicating allure of Kevin's grand gesture fade, revealing the true, enduring love that Aaron so selflessly offered? The answer promised to be a heart-wrenching journey through loyalty, betrayal, and the agonizing choices of the heart, setting the stage for a dramatic showdown that would forever alter the course of these intertwined lives. As the dust begins to settle on these initial bombshells, Emmerdale prepares to plunge deeper into the abyss, revealing secrets and consequences that will shake the village to its very foundations. The coming week promises not just resolution, but further entanglement, setting the stage for a series of events that will leave viewers reeling. The fallout from Charity's deceit, the revelation of Charity's pregnancy lie will not just be a public humiliation, it will have far-reaching, devastating consequences. Not only will her current relationship be irrevocably damaged, but an old, formidable adversary from her past, a powerful figure she thought she had outmaneuvered, will use this scandal as leverage. This individual, whose identity remains a closely guarded secret, will resurface with a chilling demand, threatening to expose an even darker secret Charity has kept buried for decades, a secret that involves another, long-lost child. The choice Charity faces will be agonizing: confess to an even greater sin and risk losing everything, or become entangled in a web of blackmail that could cost her far more than her reputation. The stakes will be higher than ever, pushing Charity to the brink of desperation and forcing her into a dangerous pact that will haunt her every waking moment. Beowulf's dark past. Paddy's desperate search for Bear will uncover more than just a missing person, it will unearth a shocking, violent history Bear had meticulously hidden. The police investigation will lead them to an abandoned, remote cabin in the woods, not far from Emmerdale, where they find evidence of a struggle, and a cryptic, bloodstained note. This note will hint at an old rivalry, a score that was never settled from Bear's wrestling days, involving a ruthless underground gambling ring and a significant debt that Bear thought he had paid. The mystery deepens when a figure from Bear's past, a menacing enforcer known only as the Bear Trap, arrives in Emmerdale, asking unsettling questions about Bear's whereabouts. This individual is not looking for a friendly reunion. Paddy will find himself inadvertently drawn into a dangerous world he never knew existed, facing threats he cannot comprehend, as he races against time to discover if his father is a victim, or if Bear himself was involved in something far more sinister than anyone imagined. The question won't just be, is Bear alive? But what kind of life was he truly living? April's desperate pact and Ray Walters' vengeance. April's struggle against Ray Walters will escalate into a heart-pounding cat-and-mouse game. Unable to secure the money and terrified of confessing to Marlon, April will make a desperate, secret pact with a seemingly benevolent, but ultimately manipulative, older villager. This individual, sensing April's vulnerability, will offer her a solution, but at a terrible price, a price that will involve April carrying out illicit tasks, unwittingly becoming a pawn in a far larger, more dangerous criminal enterprise. Just as April believes she has found a way out, Ray Walters will strike. He will break into the Dingle home, leaving a chilling, unambiguous threat, a single, black rose placed on April's pillow, a clear message that he knows her every move. This act will force April to flee, but her escape will be short-lived. A shocking car chase will ensue on the winding country roads, culminating in a terrifying cliffhanger as April, trying to evade Ray's pursuing vehicle, loses control and careers off the road, leaving her fate, and the true extent of Ray's ruthlessness, hanging in the balance. Will Marlon ever discover the full horror of what his daughter has endured? Robert's moment of truth and Aaron's radical decision. The impending vow renewal ceremony between Robert and Kevin will be fraught with unbearable tension. As Robert stands at the altar, looking into Kevin's eyes, a profound moment of doubt will wash over him. A series of flashbacks, triggered by a familiar song or a shared glance with Aaron in the pews, will flood his mind, reminding him of the genuine, unwavering love he shares with Aaron. At the critical moment, as Kevin awaits his answer, Robert will falter, unable to utter the words, leaving Kevin publicly humiliated and the entire congregation stunned. The ensuing chaos will lead to a desperate confrontation between Robert and Erin, a raw, emotional outpouring of their true feelings. However, the path to their reunion will be far from smooth. Kevin, enraged and rejected, will unleash a vengeful plot, threatening to expose a dark secret from Robert's past that could send him back to prison. In a shocking and radical twist, Erin, realizing the depth of Kevin's malice, will make an unthinkable decision to protect Robert. He will secretly arrange to take the fall for Robert's past transgression, concocting a plan to confess to a crime he didn't commit, willing to sacrifice his own freedom for the man he loves. The episode will end with Erin, a tear rolling down his cheek, placing a single, incriminating piece of evidence in a location where it will be found, knowing the devastating consequences of his choice, but believing it's the only way to save Robert. Carrie and Jai's reckless affair and the return of a ghost. The passionate affair between Carrie and Jai will intensify, leading to a series of reckless encounters that threaten to expose them to the entire village. However, their burgeoning romance will be violently disrupted by the sudden, unexpected return of a ghost from Carrie's past, her estranged sister, who was believed to be dead. This sister, hardened and embittered by years of hardship, will not return seeking reconciliation, but revenge. She believes Carrie was responsible for a tragic accident years ago that left her permanently scarred and financially ruined. Her return will not only jeopardize Carrie's new relationship but also drag her into a dangerous, high-stakes battle for survival as her sister systematically attempts to dismantle every aspect of Carrie's life. Jai, initially captivated by the thrill of the affair, will find himself caught in the crossfire, forced to choose between his career and his dangerous new love. The final scene will show Carrie receiving a menacing, anonymous package containing a photo from her past, a photo that only her sister could possess, signaling that the game of revenge has truly begun, and no one is safe.